On your next video conference call, show up in style. Just make a quick trip to your local Salvation Army thrift store. Our racks are stocked up with the items people have donated after cleaning out their closets while staying home. Save big on all our clothing, including designer labels you know and love. Here's to looking good on screen and on budget. All proceeds fund our adult rehabilitation centers. Visit sastores.org to find a location near you.
Or rhetoric offends you, tune out now.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
Oh, you magnificent bastard, I read your book. I drink your milkshake.
How dare you?
I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch.
Captain, 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 Captain,
Captain.
Captain, Captain, Captain,
Captain.
Captain, 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 Captain,
Captain.
Captain,
Captain.
Captain, 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 Captain.
No, not yet. Not yet. Don't pass out on me yet. Of course you realize this means war.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show, where I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. Always spell it with a K, a mere 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast, the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, the Capitol building in downtown Sacramento, the 10th and L Streets, where late at night you can hear the death of common sense and its concomitant wail as it wafts from that putrefying edifice. At the end of the show, when I exit the plush, resplendent, sumptuous, and palatial SHR Media Studios, I'll be smelling the odoriferous stench of sulfur, brimstone, and evil emanating from that downtown edifice. Be forewarned, for the next 2 hours, it's nothing but my opinion and my opinion only. Because the fear porn that's gripped this nation, the saloon is no longer open, but I am still serving stiff drinks, facts, history, logic, rationality, proportion, context, tradition, intent, and common sense out the back door. Got to remind you also, we don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all right here at the saloon. The speech is free, but the booze is not. This is 2020. I am done with bipartisanship and compromise. This is the new age in modern political warfare because make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, we are at war. It began with a soft coup against President Trump. It continues with a United States that has lost its mind and is ripe for two things, either utter capitulation or essentially Civil War II. If we lose freedom here in the United States of America, you're not going to have freedom most anyplace else. A ton of people in chat already, in Facebook chat. Leslie, welcome. Good to see you in chat. Barbara, happy birthday to Barbara. Good to see you there. Let's see, in SHR Media chat, is also Leslie and Sarah. Mike is in chat. Sergeant Booker is in chat. The Alaskan is in chat. And Jack Alexander, who's going to be on tonight, is in chat. Well, Jack was kind of always here. Now, because it's me, we set up the call in advance, and the first call through to Jack did what? Jack?
It didn't work.
It didn't work. So, Sergeant Booker in chat is saying, BZ, I'm looking at a faux book post from Antifa saying the protest is at 8 p.m. at Gallo Park, otherwise known as Cesar Chavez Park. Okay, a little bit of history. Sergeant Booker already knows. What then became appellated Cesar Chavez Park was formerly known as Gallo Park downtown in Sacramento, because that's where the winos used to go to drink, sup, and pass out. So there's a long, fortuitous history involved in Cesar Chavez Park, which is now Gallo Park. Tonight, for everyone, I get the feeling it's all going to kind of run together. I have got lots of cuts from the RNC, including one that if it doesn't make you tear up, then it's kind of like going to the Pearl Harbor Memorial. I don't know if you guys have been to the Pearl Harbor Memorial, or Jack, have you been to the Pearl Harbor Memorial with the battleship Arizona?
No.
Okay.
No, but it is on my bucket list.
Okay. I equate that with watching the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Arlington in D.C. You're not an American unless you shed some tears at either the Pearl Harbor Memorial or the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown. Guaranteed. And I've got some cuts. Democrats and leftists, in my opinion, are so out of touch. They have typified the RNC convention, this is the last night, night number 4, as dark and dystopian. Jack Alexander, would you quantify? Yeah, I don't know if you've seen any of the convention, but I have watched a portion of it when I can, when I'm not doing show prep and whatnot. The RNC convention would be the antithesis of dark and dystopian. I found it very, very positive. Did you happen to see any of it, Jack?
Yeah, look, I've watched. Excuse me. I've watched a good portion of it, and dark and dystopian is not what I'd call it. Although I am going to say it has been a little. For me, it has been rather disappointing.
Okay, how so?
Well, as I mentioned on my show, the Trump hero worship has gotten nauseating after 3 days. Did President Trump's successes need to be documented? Oh, hell yes. That should have been day one. That shouldn't have continued on to day 2 and day 3. And I haven't seen much of today's yet. I was going to look at some highlights after this because of the messed up thing called time zones.
Right.
Unlike the lottery numbers, I couldn't get the convention 24 hours ahead of time. But what I wanted to hear out of the Republicans was what they were going to do about the rioting that's going on. When is the government really going to get behind law enforcement? What was the government? What's the plan for the Republican administration? Should they get a second term? What are they going to do about immigration reform to make it easier for the millions of people like me who have been driven to the point of bankruptcy trying to legally immigrate? These are the things that I wanted to hear, that I just every year I watch the RNC as much as I can. Every year I want to hear this, and every year I'm disappointed because nobody wants to touch these big ticket items because, well, they are political hot potatoes.
Yes. Okay, yes, that is true. They are indeed political hot potatoes. It's funny you should mention, I got to turn my headphones up because I'm deaf as a post. There we go. Now I can hear. Funny you should mention immigration. because I have a bit that I found recently that I'd like to play for everyone that relates to the previous occupant. You know, when you get mail, it's dear occupant. Well, this is the prior occupant.
Now in 2018, they're telling you the existential threat to America is a bunch of poor refugees 1,000 miles away. They're even taking our brave troops away from their families.
Listen, this is great.
For a political stunt.
President Obama is sending 1,200 National Guard troops to boost security along the U.S.-Mexican border.
In addition to the troops, the president is also requesting $500 million for border security.
We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked,
right,
and circumventing the line of people who are waiting patiently, diligently, and lawfully to become immigrants in this country.
Yeah.
Our message absolutely is don't send your children unaccompanied on trains or through a bunch of smugglers. We don't even know how many of these kids don't make it and may have been waylaid into sex trafficking or killed because they fell off a train. We have no way of tracking
Obama deserves this.
Our administration has moved aggressively to secure our borders more by hiring a record number of new border guards, by deporting twice as many criminal aliens as ever before.
We need to try to incentivize Mexico to do more.
We are also a nation of laws. It is wrong and ultimately self-defeating for a nation of immigrants to permit the kind of abuse of our immigration laws we have seen in recent years.
If they've committed transgressions of whatever kind, they should be obviously deported.
Right. We will try to do more to speed the deportation of illegal aliens who are arrested for crime.
Illegal immigration is wrong,
Chucky.
Plain and simple. Until the American people are convinced that we will stop future flows of illegal immigration, we will make no progress on dealing with the millions of illegal immigrants who are here now and on rationalizing our system of legal immigration. When we use phrases like undocumented workers, we convey a message to the American people that their government is not serious about combating illegal immigration.
Oh, really? Don't you love stuff in their own words? And the answer is Jack Alexander. I love this stuff in their own words. That's one of the reasons I love the internet. I love to find things on the internet. From last Tuesday night, I found things on the internet. So it's fortuitous, Jack Alexander, who we are speaking to tonight, folks. Jack is almost like the third unsung, very quiet member from down under of the SHR Media Network. But I should point out, pointingly, Jack has his own show. Jack, tell people about your show and where they can find it, please.
It's called the Jack Alexander Experiment. I do it Monday to Thursdays, and you can get the audio of the podcast wherever good podcasts can be found. You'll find the video, links to the video on the Jack Alexander Experiment pages on Facebook, YouTube, Parler, Magabook. I think it's all of them. Or you can, on my webpage, jackalexanderexperiment.com, you'll find links to the video archive on YouTube on the website as well.
And here's a funny thing. I don't find it funny, ha-ha. Funny kind of, odd. It's no surprise that Jeremy Hansen and I are good friends. He's been on my show, and I have been on his show. And if you're not watching, Unleashed Jeremy Hansen, he is on Spreaker. You can find him there, and I believe it's unleashedjeremyhansen.com or .net, one of the two.
UGH Live.
Okay, UGH Live. Thank you.
Yeah.
And now he is doing occasional video, but mostly Monday through Friday. You can find him on Spreaker, audio only. Does a great show. He was here. Now, I listened to his show today for a bit, but yesterday I listened to the entire show. Tuesday night here, I had 3 videos that I guessed would get me in trouble. And they had to do with Wuhan 19 and different opinions from different doctors and other individuals who were telling us information about hydroxychloroquine, other opinions with doctors, revelations about Fauci, revelations about Moderna, revelations about hospitals, and revelations about the CDC. As promised, Facebook is so predictable. Fuck them. As promised, Facebook covered my video and said, all the information here is false. Every damn bit of it. But here's the sad thing. Now, I've started to say on this show, because I've never been a halfway decent self-promoter, but I'll say it now because I'm thinking about it. If you're watching me on YouTube, hit share, please. If you're watching me on Facebook, hit share, please. If you're listening on Spreaker, hit share, please. But
it's funny you talk about Facebook and what they're doing. Of late, I've been having my own fights with Facebook, and
Are you going to go with the chick, that gal that you told me about?
Yeah.
Okay. Folks, I got to Jack, I got to do a little preface about this, because when you sent me the picture of this chick, I was astounded. Okay. I wish. Do I have it? I'm going to look on my phone. I think I have it. I'm going to have to show while you're talking. Anyway, what Jack is about to tell you, it's incredible. There really is a person like this, because he sent me the picture of this person, and then I sent him back a meme. It's just, you can't write this stuff. Jack, take it away about Facebook.
This sort of thing originally started on YouTube. People were actually putting in copyright claims against me for using my voice and my image without their permission. But then it's now migrated over to Facebook, where it appears that until this is settled, and they told me it's settled, but I'm still having trouble uploading videos to Facebook at the moment. But an 89-year-old woman from Turkey, originally thought she was Russian, but turns out she was from Turkey has a YouTube and Facebook channel that has videos of her doing traditional Turkish peasant food. And Facebook pinged me and said that my opening monologue, so it wasn't my graphic introduction, my music, or any video I showed, but my opening monologue, where I say, hello, welcome to the show, please check out my website, here's my email address, follow me on Instagram and Twitter, was owned by this 89-year-old sweet old Turkish woman.
Okay, and now, if you're watching, folks, if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're watching on Facebook, this is the photograph that Jack sent me, and then I made a meme out of it. Tomorrow, Sanye on the Jack Alexander experiment. This is her, folks. This is her who's kvetching about Jack. I'm sorry.
Well, I actually don't believe she's the one that did it.
Okay.
I really can't see an 89-year-old Turkish woman who no habla inglés
Yeah, it doesn't make
would
much
even
sense.
I actually think that this is Facebook again trying to shut down conservative broadcasting by just, okay, who is not likely to complain that we use their name to fuck with someone? Oh, let's pick on a little old 89-year-old woman in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, Turkey. And use her. But the funny thing, the irony in all of this, I've actually now become a fan of her cooking videos. There are some really good, okay, I've got to run, the translated subtitles and so on. And if I download one of her recipes, it's got to go through Google Translate. But she cooks some really good food.
I'm sorry.
Maybe I'll repay the favor and put some of her recipes in my cookbook.
I think you should. Okay.
But as it stands, I'm having trouble uploading to Facebook at the moment, so I'm just uploading to my show to YouTube and just throwing the links onto Facebook to the YouTube channel, just to try and get it. It seems like every other week they find a new way to mess with my show on Facebook.
It's true, but what I was getting around to in a really damn circuitous fashion was, so Jeremy did me a solid on Tuesday when he began to share my show. And apparently he shared it to, of all places, Spotify. Well, I am on Spotify. I'm on, Apple, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, basically all that stuff. Like you say in your promo, any good podcast kind of place, I'm on all of those too. I don't really make much reference to them, but yeah, you can go find me on all those places as well. Apparently, Jack shared the broadcast to Spotify, and Spotify screwed with Jeremy Hansen and either killed him or something like that, removed him or removed the post, one of the two, because it contained information that dealt with the CDC, Dr. Fauci, hydroxychloroquine, Wuhan 19, etc., and it's verboten to speak about anything else that the left doesn't want you to hear. But there are reasons that they don't want you to hear those things, which is why I value everybody here tonight. So last night, not today, yesterday, Jeremy Hansen carried on his show for a good portion of it, regaling that tale and saying essentially, this is where we are in America right now. This is the America that we're facing. Leslie Hoker here in SHR Media Chat says they don't want the truth anywhere out there. And it's true. Now, I happen to be of the opinion, and I will have some stories to back that up later tonight. I'm of the opinion that we should not... Many conservatives are down in the dumps with what's going on around us today. This is not the United States of America that we recognize. Jack Alexander, this is not the United States of America that you would want to come to. So we know that we have...
It's certainly not the United States of America I grew up dreaming about coming to. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
It's still better than what I'm dealing with here at the moment.
Okay, that's true. That's granted. Let's see. I'm going to take a break in about 2 minutes at the bottom of the hour. When we come back, we're going to go into an area that does deal with Australia and with Jack, as I told him I wanted to address this audio cut tonight. And then we're going to go into some RNC cuts, and it will eventually culminate in an RNC address that I listened to tonight. And as I indicated prior there was kind of an allergy going on, and my eyes were getting damp and whatnot. And when we get to that, you'll hear it, you'll know it, you'll understand it. This cannot be the United States of America that we're going to accept, which is why conservatives, myself, and Jack, and Jeremy, and everyone else, and all the various people that you listen to that are on the internet or on the radio, you listen to them because you recognize that this year in 2020, say what you will about, and we joke about comets falling from the sky, sharks eating people, and the victims dying on the autopsy table of COVID-19. We joke about that, but November 3rd is no joke. And we're doing ourselves a grave disservice if we think that it's simply about Republicans versus Democrats. It's about tyranny and anarchy versus the rule of law, communism versus capitalism. And I would go so far as to stipulate that it really is, bottom line, it's about good versus evil.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Shannon Wright of The Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Mike's not here, so I gotta talk fast. You gotta join us. Fall season. Getting ready to start up with a whole bunch of new stuff. News and food and politics and sports and entertainment and a whole bunch of stuff. But wait, Mike's coming. I gotta go. Remember, Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media, Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. Make sure you tune in.
Featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
Join me, Jack Alexander, for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the issues affecting the USA. I fearlessly take on the issues that everyone else is too scared to touch. The Jack Alexander Experiment podcast is available wherever good podcasts can be found, like Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. The Jack Alexander Experiment, because it's not a matter of left versus right, it's a matter of right versus wrong.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Featuring the effervescent contrarian sackheads Clint plus the unrestrained bulbosity of BZ, the Sackheads Against Tyranny is a real chat show. Doubling your late-night conservative talk show pleasure with double the hosts, you can listen every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Please note, some contents may have settled during shipping. Member FDIC, batteries not included, warranty voided Montenegro.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to me in the show tonight. I am the bloviating Zeppelin. One each. Zeppelin, comma, bloviating. Right here. On the show tonight with me, and he has appeared live numerous times, is Jack Alexander of the Jack Alexander Experiment. For those who don't know, Jack lives in Australia. If I'm not mistaken, you live in Victoria. Am I remembering correctly, Jack?
You are remembering perfectly.
Okay. We're going to get into some coronavirus stuff because during the break you wrote something about your situation in Australia right now regarding Wuhan 19, and a lot of the people that were in chat. And thanks to Leslie, Jack, Sergeant Booker, Sarah, Whiskey Dale, the Alaskan. Leslie and Sarah is in Facebook chat. And Jimmy Collins just jumped into Facebook chat, so good to see you there. Anyway, you were talking about some things that were occurring in Australia, but I will get to those, and I will get to the little bit that I sent you regarding coronavirus. But first, I know you guys like this. I know you guys, you like it, you love it, you want some more of it, right?
The Bloviating Zeppelins, HeyJackass.com Chicago Death Toll Update. Courtesy of Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
This is from HeyJackass.com. Gotta go there. Illustrating Chicago values. August to date, shot and killed 44. Shot and wounded 371. Total shot 415. Total homicides 46. August to date. Now, week in progress, August 23rd to August 29th, shot and killed 4. Shot and wounded 83. A little better. Total shot 87, total homicides 5. Year to date, this is where they max out. Shot and killed 456. Shot and wounded 2,275. Total shot 2,731, making total homicides year to date 498. They're only 2 away from 500. In Chicago, the city of big shoulders. What a wonderful, wonderful place to be. What a wonderful world it could be. And I told you, riots are expected in downtown Sacramento near Cesar Chavez Park. If anarchists are on time, they should already be involved in those. I am less than 2 miles from that area right now. Somebody in the law enforcement venue told me that this was going to happen. And they also said that Antifa took a road trip from Portland down I-5, likely, to Sacramento just to be here for tonight and apparently tomorrow night. 2 nights only! Antifa appearing here, 2 nights only! So we'll wait and see if Sac PD will step up and do what's right under Chief Hahn. Chief Hahn, however, being the knob polisher that he is, may or may not, he kneeled with BLM in sympathy along with our Mayor Steinberg. 2 great guys. So, Dan Hahn, if you want the job, you basically got to jump through the hoops that Mayor Steinberg wants you to jump through. If you don't like the job, I guess he'll find somebody else. California is packed with leftist police chiefs. Okay, so
I got a police question about this.
Sure. Police chiefs that are leftist are a dime a dozen around here.
Yeah. Now, as I understand, because I'm not used to the multiple levels of law enforcement at those sorts of levels, growing up with a different system, couldn't the Sacramento County come in and just override the city of Sacramento and come in and start cracking skulls? After all, isn't the city part of the county?
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, we used to say the same thing. We used to say, and SPD, the Sacramento Police Department, and the Sacramento Sheriff's Department have historically pretty much gotten along. There have been some differences. There are major differences historically. There have been major differences between the way that the Sacramento Police Department and the Sacramento Sheriff's Department have handled things. We have come in for mutual aid at the request of the Sacramento Police Department. That's happened a number of times in the past. And we have called for mutual aid from other law enforcement agencies, to include SacPD as well. The lines now are such that I don't know how this works anymore. A lot of cops are befuddled. We used to say, again, in the 70s, that, you know, if somebody from SacPD got a little salty with us, you know, and we made a vehicle stop with a guy in the back seat in the downtown area of Sacramento because somebody was doing something stupid in front of us, and we happened to be making a vehicle stop within the city limits, occasionally somebody would say, it's the Sheriff's Department, you know, making a vehicle stop within the city of Sacramento. And our immediate response would be, that's funny. Your city happens to be within my county. So, okay. In any event, now whether SacPD will, if this pops off, don't know if it will, don't know if it yes or no. They have called for mutual aid before. And also CHP has given them aid before. The situation between CHP downtown and CHP and SacPD downtown is a little strained these days when CHP made a vehicle stop. I believe it was last year following the riots at that SacPD was otherwise occupied with at the King's Arena downtown. And CHP called for Code 3 cover, meaning I need some help here. And SacPD didn't respond. That wasn't a really good response. And I happen to know that occurred for a fact because I still have lots of people that are in law enforcement in Sacramento. Sarah Nichols in chat, SHR Media chat, said Portland police is a joke. Yeah, no kidding. Such is law enforcement now, Jack, that I am of the opinion right now we have a sheriff, Scott Jones, who is predominantly holding the line against stupidity. And as a result, in all the leftist media, the Sacramento Bee, etc., he's reduced to a stupid joke. Scott Jones is not going to be long for the sheriff's department position. We have a great DA right now in Anna Marie Schubert, but I would also wager that in the not too terribly distant future, she's going to be the last fairly decent DA that we have. And Scott Jones will be probably the last fairly decent sheriff that we have holding the line. Damn it, Jack, you're making me talk about something that I wasn't going to talk about until next week, but I'll talk about it now. There are a lot of bills in committee, and one of my resources tells me that most of these bills are anti-cop bills. One of them is AB 1185. Because Gavin Newsom, and if you can't see my hat in Facebook live streaming or in YouTube, my hat says, recall Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is pissed off with various sheriffs up and down the state of California because they essentially on various occasions have told him to go to hell in terms of making arrests, etc., behind Wuhan 19. So he's crafting a bill in which sheriff departments will be emasculated and will have to answer to a citizens' board, similar to what city police chiefs have to, despite the fact that sheriffs are elected by the people and chiefs of police are appointed. So the bottom line behind all of this is that leftists want power in perpetuity, and they're not happy with anyone pushing back on any of that. I'll have more information in a bit about that bill and other things next week. Jeremy Hansen is in Facebook chat. Good to see you here. Maria is in Facebook chat. Jimmy Collins as well. Thank you guys for being here. We're talking to Jack Alexander tonight. In the chat room, Jack, you were having a tete-a-tete with somebody else regarding the state of Australia with regard to Wuhan 19, the coronavirus. Can you tell people what you were telling her, please?
Well, it's worse in the state of Victoria. The Premier, even the leftist media maggots in this state are now saying, hang on, Premier Andrews, the Premier, to put it in is the equivalent of the state governor.
Okay.
Even the leftist media are now saying, hang on a second, Mr. Premier, you're now stepping on the democracy and you need to, people need to start asking for you to pull back your reins and so on. Yeah, we've got headlines like Premier's grab for absolute power. The fury over the unchecked authority to impose restrictions on all Victorians until September of 2021. So the Premier is wanting to keep the way things are at the moment until 2021. I mean, we actually have police and military checkpoints spread out around the city and the state, checking people's papers. You can't, at the moment, the restrictions are we can't travel more than 3 miles from our registered address.
And, of course, you have to have ID on you all the time.
You've got to have ID on you all the time. It is actually a misdemeanor to walk the streets without ID during a time of an emergency. Actually, at any time, once you're over the age of 18. It's actually a misdemeanor offence to not have ID on you. And, yes, you're allowed to travel beyond that if you have a medical appointment. And look, I'm in a small rural town, satellite town, just outside of the greater Melbourne area. So for me to go to the next town and do shopping, I've got to travel more than 3 miles. It's 10 miles to in any direction to the next town. If I want to go and shop at Costco, that's 20 miles away. And given we've got a large family consolidated under one roof at the moment because of this whole corona horseshit.
Right.
Because you can't work, you can't get anywhere. Our little independent, a little IGA does not portion up its meat in sizes that will feed that you can prepare a meal for the size of the family. About the only place you can get meat in those sorts of proportions when you're feeding 5 adults and 2 elementary school kids is you go to Costco. Well, you can't go to Costco to do your shopping because it's 20 miles away. They had police checkpoints checking people's ID as they were walking into Costco. You live more than 5 kilometres or 3 miles away, here's a fine for $2,000. By the way, you want to argue about this, the fine jumps up to $10,000. And so okay, fine. I need to get a hearing test because I'm suffering from some bad tinnitus at the moment. Okay, I can get a hearing test done at Costco. a medical examination is an allowed reason for travel. So I called up Costco to make the appointment, and they said, "Oh, yes, sir. You're a member. You're welcome to come in and have it. But because if you live outside of that 3-mile limit, you can't shop here. Even though you're coming for the health test, you can't do any shopping while you're here."
Okay, only the hearing. Only the hearing. Sure, right.
Yeah. Well, they're saying, you'll be allowed to get the hearing test done by a hearing aid if that's required, but you won't be able, while you're there, go and do some other shopping. They've even been, we've got right next to the Costco, closest to me, there's a large shopping mall and a large regional hospital. They've been fining the hospital employees that have been going from the hospital over to the shopping mall to the food court to get lunch if they live outside of that 3-mile limit. They're arguing the point that if you live outside of the 3-mile, if your place of work is outside of that 3-mile boundary from your registered address, you must take lunch with you to work. You are not allowed to go over and go to the food court and support a local business.
Okay.
So this is how messed up it's gotten.
Folks, if you think that can't happen here, when you have Joe Biden telling, I can't think of the guy's last name, 80, he's the guy that he spoke to who had ALS. And this gentleman said, well, we need to change things. Would you defund the police? And Joe Biden said yes. Joe Biden also said that one of the things that he would do if scientists said so is mandate masks being worn outside. A mask being worn outside is like, and folks, I guarantee each one of you have seen these, and the microsecond you see someone like this, don't you think the first thing you think is moron? Somebody in their car wearing a mask, and the first thing you think of, are you a stegosaurus? Because the stegosaurus had a brain the size of a walnut, and then it had a ganglion of nerves in its hips to make its rear legs move. So these morons, or it's fear porn, I'm not sure which, or a combination of the two, who's going to wear a mask outside? Joe Biden wants that. Screw your constitutional rights, like Australia says to you.
But BZ, I actually got pulled over by the cops for not wearing a mask while driving alone in my vehicle.
Okay.
And I said to I'm of an age where, like most of us, I need to now legally wear corrective lenses when I'm driving.
Okay.
When I've got the face mask on, my glasses fog up, making it, I don't have clear vision to operate the motor vehicle. And the only reason I didn't walk out of that exchange with a $2,000 citation was that I said to the officer, hang on, I want to record this, and reached for my phone and said, I want you to explain to me how me being alone in a motor vehicle without a mask so I can have clear vision while operating a motor vehicle is worthy of a fine. And all of a sudden then, when I started reaching for my phone to start the video recording, it was a very different tune that started coming out.
Huh, imagine that.
Yeah, we've had people assaulted by law enforcement for just walking out to their front yards and checking their letterboxes without a face mask on.
I had the video of some chick being taken down by this This big guy, because he came out, and apparently she had papers where medically she couldn't wear a mask, and yet she was taken down to the ground, choked out, and then stashed in an Australian cop car. I don't remember where that was. Maybe that was Victoria too. I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah, Cheryl,
that was Victoria. That was St Kilda.
Okay.
And the silly thing is, she then actually wasn't fined for not wearing a mask, but was fined for resisting arrest. Sorry, she's awaiting trial for resisting arrest.
Right, because when you got one charge, why not? That's called in parlance here. That's called stacking charges. I want to play a couple of videos. These are from Australia. One is from August 20th. What is this? It says 9 News Queensland. Melbourne hospital staff are taking part in a trial of controversial drug hydroxychloroquine touted by U.S. President Donald Trump. And they happen to say this.
Taking part in a trial of a controversial drug touted by U.S. President Donald Trump. Today, Melbourne reporter Christina Hearn has the details from outside St Vincent's Hospital. Excuse me. Chris, what does this involve exactly?
Well, Carl, I can tell you that St Vincent's Hospital is actively recruiting doctors and nurses to take part in a clinical trial to see whether the controversial drug hydroxychloroquine can prevent healthcare workers from getting COVID-19 while
controversial drug
they treat COVID patients. It does come after the government's own coronavirus task force recommended that hydroxychloroquine, once taken by US President Donald Trump, not be used in the prevention or treatment of the virus.
So is that accurate, Jack Alexander? Australia recommended hydroxychloroquine? Nope. Nope.
From the sources I have, hydroxychloroquine will only be given if you happen to be dying on a respirator in ICU. It's absolutely forbidden to be given as a prophylactic in prevention. And even people who were taking chloroquine for things like was it Lyme's disease and rheumatoid arthritis they've now moved it that every time the doctor writes a prescription for that, they have to go to the state health department and get permission. So the pharmacist has state permission to issue that for the condition that they've got. And if they happen to write COVID down on there, it's not allowed.
This was interesting. The head pharmacist of whatever appellation that would be in Ohio forbade Ohio pharmacists from dispensing hydroxychloroquine. The Ohio governor had a bit of a unpleasantness with this, and within, I think, about a week or so, they okayed it to be dispensed. But if I'm not mistaken, if I go up here far enough, it looks like Leslie said, and basically nailed it in SHR chat, where she said, masks and quarantines are for the sick. They're not for people who are healthy in a society. And that is absolutely true. Yet, leftist governors, mayors, etc., and the American media maggots, because they hate Trump and guaranteed this is all what it is, and money, power, and control with Fauci and Moderna and Bill Gates. That's a story for last Tuesday. Go see, folks, if you haven't yet, go watch my second hour last Tuesday night, this past Tuesday night, 2 nights ago, and listen to the 3 videos that I have right here. I want to play the rest of this, and let's see, like Mike in Facebook chat says, yeah, this is from Melbourne, who's talking now.
Other major studies in Australia have since shut down, but this trial will be going ahead. It is in conjunction with the Walter and Eliza Hall Institute. It will take place over a 4-month period. Half the participants will be given the controversial drug, the other half a placebo. Already 40 participants from this hospital have signed up. But healthcare workers infected with coronavirus is becoming becoming an increasing problem, a major strain on our healthcare system. There are currently 753 active cases, and I've been told in this hospital alone, 116 doctors and nurses have been infected with COVID-19 in the last 2.5 months.
Okay, let's stop right there. How about, folks, a little reality check? And I think I said something like, let's put this all in perspective. Australia, as Jack knows, consists of 2.97 million square miles. It's not just a country, it's its own damn continent. On this continent, at last check, there were 572 deaths in all of Australia. And these people are going nuts over 572 deaths. Now, granted, it's Australia. I don't have any control over that. Countries get to do whatever the hell they want. It's their country. But I'm attempting to put things in perspective. And the perspective is, if you want to see this crap done poorly, well, just come to the United States of America and watch how Andrew Cuomo handled the situation and managed to kill 11,000 elderly patients in the state of New York when he mandated that COVID-19 infected persons be placed forcibly by mandate in New York nursing homes. That's insane.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York. The Lid himself, Jeff Dunnett. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunnett.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Good evening. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is featured on the SHR Media Network every Tuesday and Thursday night for 2 hours at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. Whilst manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ continues to radically change the world of leftists, one diaper at a time. Stop balancing your checkbooks. Stop cleaning your fish tanks. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is your magnet for truth, justice, obesity, a darkened studio, and late-night freedom. No United States of America freedoms were abridged in the making of this ad.
This is Shannon Wright.
And this is Michael Wright.
Reminding you to listen
to The Right Way with Shannon and Mike.
Every Monday through Thursday.
7 to 9 a.m.
Right here on shrmedia.com.
Join me, Jack Alexander, for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the issues affecting the USA. I fearlessly take on the issues that everyone else is too scared to touch. The Jack Alexander Experiment podcast is available wherever good podcasts can be found, like Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. The Jack Alexander Experiment, because it's not a matter of left versus right, it's a matter of right versus wrong.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense League radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On EDL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Featuring the effervescent contrarian, Sackheads Clint, plus the unrestrained bulbosity of BZ, the Sackheads Against Tyranny is a real chat show. Doubling your late-night conservative talk show pleasure with double the hosts, you can listen every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Please note, some contents may have settled during shipping. Member FDIC, batteries not included, warranty voided Montenegro.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is the second hour, number 2, in the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. The door to the studio has not been kicked in. And I really don't know what's happening downtown, to be honest, because I don't have a producer and I got to make all this stuff go. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screens looking back at me. And I'm talking in Facebook chat, I'm talking in SHR Media chat, and I'm trying to play audio cuts and talking to our guest tonight, who happens to be Jack Alexander. And I greatly appreciate it when Jack comes on. Jack and I customarily have a really, really good time. If you happen to be watching in Facebook, hit the share button, bing, and share this if you would, pretty please. If you happen to be listening in Spreaker, hit the share button, bing, and share me if you would, please. If you happen to be watching in YouTube, hit the share button, bing, and share me on YouTube. I'm going to be a sharing is caring kind of guy from now on, attempting at least a little bit to promote myself a bit harder than I have in the past. I now have Jack Alexander on, who is a radio host himself, the Jack Alexander Experiment. And I have, 1 minute and 16 seconds of audio that I told Jack that I would play tonight. This is, this is, I think, her name. Don't know for sure. Serene Tefaha. China is China is DNA profiling through COVID testing. That's interesting. Listen to this.
Similarly here, we have a body called the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. And the Australian Strategic Policy Institute looks at contracts and looks at security risks for this country. And you know what they've produced? I'll tell you what they produced. What they produced is a report to identify that the 10 million RT-PCR tests that we got from Chinese company called Beijing Genomics Institute is actually doing a fantastic job of DNA profiling for the Chinese government. They're actually building a police-run DNA database. And I've got all the reports. They're all online. The Australian Strategic Policy Institute warned the government of the security risk of using the RT-PCR tests, the 10 million of them that brought in, okay, for the fact that the BGI is related very strongly to companies that are engaging in DNA dragnets, profiling DNA. That's right. The RT-PCR tests are not so reliable for COVID-19, but they're pretty good at getting your DNA information.
Funny how that works out. Isn't it, Jack?
Yeah, look, I contacted the Strategic Policy Institute. I could not verify the report that she's talking about.
Okay.
However, a few phone calls and conversations to places that are doing testing did confirm that the tests were made in China. So I'm sort of in two minds about that. I can't confirm that the report that she's talking about exists, but I can confirm the other part of her story. And the database that's being entered on was sold with the tests to the Victorian government. And, it's being, they're getting online tech support from China. The Chinese company has open access to that database for tech support reasons. Well, anyone that's worked in network administration knows that tech support usually requires some level of God-level access to the networks. So accessing that information for nefarious purposes by the Chinese government would be relatively simple.
It's no secret that I have been watching the DNC. Well, I did. Okay, I admit it. I did watch part of the DNC last week convention. But I have been following some of the speeches that have been given, and I've got 5. I don't know if I'll have time for them for the rest of the hour. But since we've gone to China right now, I have one from a Chinese speaker, Chen Guangcheng. He's blind, and he's reading his speech by Braille. But he's a Chinese activist that spoke last night at the RNC. Following his speech, and Jack, if you have anything you want to say during the speech, just jump in, interrupt, and I'll stop it, and you can make whatever comments you wish. He's a Chinese activist who is telling us about the nature of China, and right after this, today, a story about China emerged that we will talk about next. This is RNC, Night 3. This is Chen, now I forgot his name already. Chen Guangcheng, a blind activist. He's reading his script by Braille. What a courageous dude.
Greetings. My name is Chen Guangcheng. Standing up to tyranny is not easy, I know. When I spoke out against China's one-child policy and other injustices, I was prosecuted, beaten, sent to prison, and put under house arrest by the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. In April 2012, I escaped and was given shelter in the American Embassy in Beijing. I'm forever grateful to the American people for welcoming me and my family to the United States, where we are now free. The CCP is an enemy of humanity. It is terrorizing its own people, and it is threatening the well-being of the world. In China, expressing beliefs or ideas not approved by the CCP, religion, democracy, human rights can lead to prison. The nation lives under mass surveillance and censorship. The U.S. must use its values of freedom, democracy, and the rule of law to gather a coalition of other democracies to stop CCP's aggression. President Trump had led on this, and we need the other countries to join him in this fight. a fight for our future. Standing up to fight unfairness isn't easy, I know. So does President Trump. But he has shown the courage to wage that fight. We need to support, vote, and fight for President Trump for the sake of the world. Thank you.
He's right. China is the enemy of the United States. China is the enemy of the world. Any thoughts about that speech, Jack Alexander?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned China because and COVID with this, because within Australia there is a hotel chain that is being used as quarantine hostels.
Okay.
Run by a Chinese company, where if you get test positive and you get sent to this, you will get charged anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 a week for the privilege of being unlawfully incarcerated there, and an extra $65 per day per person to be fed while you're there. And the local news outlets, I think it was Channel 9, it might have been Channel 7, was sent video from a family that was being stuck in one of these quarantine hotels. And let's just say there was better value being supplied under Michelle Obama's school lunches plan to what's being served up at $65 a day in these things, if they get fed at all. There have been reports in several of these, not just at the two hotels in Melbourne, but right around the country, all run by the same Asian conglomerate based out of China, that people have been lucky to get one meal per day. And we are talking about families, with babies and so on, and they're not getting fed, even with what's going on in there. So yeah, these abuses are going on, and when they tried complaining to management about this, it was basically, you sick, you shut up. You have no rights. They tried complaining to the government. It's a case of, well, you're infected with COVID. What do you expect? You've got no rights. Shut the fuck up. So they went, and when the liberal media has to cover this, you know the abuses are going too far. When you've got liberal news networks saying, this is the situation at the moment. You get caught with vaccine. You get caught with COVID, and you get dragged off, kicking and screaming, for the pleasure of paying up to $3,000 a week to stay here, and then several $100 per a week per person to be fed. That this is your penalty for being caught outside and infected with COVID. Again, it's another scare tactic to try and keep people illegally under house arrest. I mean, this is the first time in my life that they have essentially placed an entire state of some 6 million people under house arrest for the crime of breathing or having just living within the state of Victoria.
For the tune of 572 deaths. Now, comparatively, like I said, Australia, you're in company.
That's for the entire country.
That's for the entire country. That's my point. And as I say in the intro, every night, leftists in particular have no sense of facts, history, logic, rationality, context, tradition, intent. And the other one that I leave out, that I make sure that I put in there, is proportion. Where is the proportionality of all of this? Locking down an entire populace of a continent as compared to, the rest of the world, when there are 572 total known deaths from Wuhan 19 in Australia. Proportionally, You guys are insane. I mean, well, the United States, we rival you with insanity in lots of other areas, but we're not quite there with that type of insanity yet. And I certainly understand why you rail against this. You know,
yeah, I mean, look, we rail against California quite often on this show, and
yes,
rightly so.
Yes.
But when the absolute insanity of California, the high taxes, the liberalism, and the fruits and nuts that make up California is more preferable to living in a state in Australia, which was supposedly the lucky country, and this and the silly thing is in this, this guy belongs to the more conservative of our political parties that's running the state. So I guess we should be thanking God that this is the more conservative reaction we're getting. I can only imagine how much more messed up it would be if the true socialist side of it was running the state. But yeah, I mean, I would happily move to Chicago or to California, Sacramento at the moment, than live here. That's how fucked up it's gotten. This is not what I spent 10 years of my life as a member of the Australian military protecting. I am absolutely ashamed of being an Australian these days.
Let me ask you this. I read this article, and trust me, folks, somebody else send me a message and say, are you going to get back to that China article that you promised? Yes, I am going to get back to the China article because we listened to that one particular Chinese dissident, and I have other audio cuts to play from the RNC, one of which I am definitely going to get in before the end of the show. But last Tuesday night, from LifeSite News, and once I read this, then I want Jack to weigh in on what could or is happening in Australia behind this. Doctors lay out plan to punish people who refuse coronavirus vaccine. There is no alternative. This is from an article August the 11th. A coronavirus vaccine should be mandatory, and tax penalties, higher insurance premiums, and denial of many government and private services ought to be considered for those refusing the shot, two doctors and an attorney argued in USA Today. While the measures will be necessary to defeat the coronavirus will seem draconian, do you think? Even anti-American to some? Yeah. We believe that there is no alternative. Simply put, getting vaccinated is going to be our patriotic duty. Is it to that point, Jack Alexander, in Australia yet?
A proposal that's come out, what they did with vaccinations here, if you were on any sort of government benefit, was that they would start. They can't legally mandate you to do it. But what they turned around and did was, if you have government, you can't apply for a government welfare unless you are vaccinated. If you have children and you get, say, the parenting allowances and stuff, and you don't get them vaccinated, they will start reducing your payments every fortnight. So it gets paid every 2 weeks until such times as they are vaccinated. So basically they're saying, Daniel Andrews, the Premier of the state, is saying that anyone that refuses to get vaccinated and is on any sort of government welfare will have their entitlements, or their benefits slowly reduced to zero, or until they comply.
Right, because, look at it this way. Hey, Jack, that's not mandatory. You just can't get stuff. We're not telling you it's mandatory. You just can't have insurance. We're not telling you it's mandatory. You can't go into a store. We're not telling you it's mandatory. You can't go into a bank. We're not telling you it's mandatory. You can't go to work. We're not telling you it's mandatory. You can't get into public transit, a bus or a car or a subway or a train. So we're not telling you it's mandatory because we're not telling you it's mandatory. Jack, geez, it's not mandatory.
Yeah.
Or is it?
I mean, well, that's it. With the roadside sobriety checkpoints here, you don't have to. Police don't have the authority to compel you to take a breathalyzer test, but should you refuse, your license is automatically revoked.
All right, because
they have these lovely backdoor ways of getting around, a lot of this thing, and you try and complain about it, and they just keep ramping the fines to the point where you just cannot afford to fight it.
Here is I've said this any number of times, one of the reasons, sadly, Jack Alexander, I kind of like to use you as an illustration. Australia is an excellent illustration of what not to do if you're a country, and what leftists have done there with you want to do here in America. And we're make no mistake, we're in a war, not yet a total civil war, getting there. But leftists want you unarmed. Folks in Australia are predominantly unarmed. That's and you cannot fight back from police or military oppression. Does it occur? Yeah, it does. Has it occurred in America? Not like it is in Australia, yet we have example after example after example here in the United States of what I consider to be stupid police departments and ridiculous officers who don't know when to say no, making arrests behind people in the water by themselves during coronavirus, in a park playing with their child, arrested. This stuff is still continuing, not like it was. But contrast, as my law professor, Elton Long, used to say at Sac State, contrast and compare this to what's happening then and what leftists want to occur to you under Biden. If Fauci suggests one day, Joe, everybody in the U.S. ought to be wearing a mask, Biden has said, I'll do that. I'll make a federal mandate. From me to Joe Biden, and I hope everyone that's listening to me right now, including Jack Alexander, if this comes down, fuck you. Arrest me. Not going to be happening with me. I hope it won't be happening with you. And for those of you who say, oh, you need to wear a mask, stay the hell inside. Quiver under your desk in the fetal position. Stay the hell inside. Stay away from me. The onus is on you, not me. I want and love my Constitution, my Bill of Rights. If you abjure it, that's on you, not me. Now, I'm going to get to the Chinese article. I got 3 more minutes. I can do this article in 3 more minutes. This just came out today. South China Morning Post. China could weaponize drug exports to retaliate against U.S. chip restrictions, Beijing advisor says. It's starting. Make no mistake, this is by an individual named Sissy Zhao, Z-H-O-U. High-profile economist Li Dukui, I slaughtered that name, says Beijing could restrict drug exports to the U.S. if Trump administration was to cut Chinese access to semiconductors. Washington has been ratcheting up attacks on Chinese tech firms, TikTok, for example, including starving Huawei of components made by American countries. Well, have you heard of the Silk Road Initiative? If you haven't during the break, look it up. Chinese individuals are here in America to subvert politicians and lots of other people, including Dianne Feinstein, Joe Biden, and a ton of the Democrats. This is from the article. Remember Obama said, we'll never get these back. We'll never get these companies back. We got them back. A good bunch of them under Trump from China. But we should never have given them up in the first place. China should weaponize its exports of medicines and drug precursors. If the U.S. cuts the country's access to computer chips, a prominent Chinese academic and government advisor says, as supply chain security emerges as a key theme in the upcoming American presidential election. Supply chain security for Americans. Why is it an issue now? It should have been an issue 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. President Bill Clinton giving information and technology to China in 1995. This is no surprise when this kind of crap happens. But as I said long ago, leftists cannot see or refuse to see more than 2 inches in front of their face. Thanks for listening. I'll be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey, are you guys listening? This is Shannon from Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, folks, that's right. We're back. So please join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It is he that is me, bringing perspective from across the sea. Join me, Jack Alexander, 4 days a week for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the news and issues affecting life and liberty here in the USA. I'll show you what the mainstream media refuses to. Politics, border security, defense, healthcare, travel, nothing is off limits. Catch the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast each Monday to Thursday on Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere good podcasts can be found. Also, check out the website www.jackalexanderexperiment.com.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense League radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On EDL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Well, we're back. It's the final 25 minutes here in the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where I've had the pleasure of spending the entire 2 hours with Jack Alexander, one each, right here. Jack is a great guy. You can hear him on the Jack Alexander Experiment at a much more reasonable time. Jack Alexander, please tell folks where they can hear your show and at what a much more reasonable time it is, please.
Well, the much more reasonable time is at their convenience, because I'm not doing live at the moment because of the bullshit that I had to deal with YouTube and Facebook.
Oh.
So I'm pre-recording it so you can What?
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Yep. Oh, I remember. I thought we'd lost you. I'm not doing live because of the bullshit that YouTube and Facebook keep putting me through, and I'm still getting strange old Turkish ladies. Complaining about copyright violations. But check out the Jack Alexander Experiment pages on Facebook, YouTube, Parler, and Megabook. The audio version of the podcast is available wherever good podcasts can be found, with the exception of Apple Podcasts. It's just, with me being in Australia and it being an American centered program, or centered, not centered, but it was just too much of a nightmare trying to get it put onto the American podcast list with me being physically in Australia. So Apple Podcasts is about the only place you can't get it. That, or check out the website, jackalexanderexperiment.com.
Okay, can they find the archive of some of your shows there, jackalexanderexperiment.com?
Yeah, there's a link to my YouTube playlist there, but probably the easiest thing is either through Spreaker for the audio podcasts. They're all there, and YouTube, my YouTube channel. I've got them all up there.
Thanks for being here, Jack. Jack and I always have a good time. Jack and I have consistently said, wouldn't it be fun if all of a sudden he was in Sacramento and he were sitting across from me in the chair right there where Sackhead Sean sits sometimes. This was configured at one point for 3 people back when we had the Sackheads show going with myself, Sackhead Sean, and Sackheads Clint, who was even a worse techno-Luddite than I. Having said that, it would be great to have Jack in the studio because, especially with Zoom and TikTok and all that kind of stuff, trying to conduct an interview with somebody over the telephone or over Facebook or something like that, occasionally there's a little bit of a delay or you talk over somebody. It's much easier, I've discovered, to talk face-to-face to somebody, and someday we'll try to see if perhaps we can do that.
Oh, if we can get into the same room, it's going to be a real hold my beer moment.
I kind of suspect something like that. Alcohol may be involved, not quite sure, but it possibly could be involved. I want to play an audio cut now. This is from the I think this was night 2, if I'm not mistaken. This is Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron's speech at the RNC. You're going to hear from this guy again. This guy is sharp.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Cameron. I'm 34 years old and the first African-American Attorney General in Kentucky history. It is an honor to be with you as a proud Republican and supporter of Donald J. Trump. I was raised in Kentucky, just a few miles from Abraham Lincoln's birthplace. Our first Republican president believed in compassion.
If you want to weigh in at any time, just as per normal, Jack, just jump in, start talking, and I'll stop the video.
Self-reliance, freedom, equality, and justice. Sadly, there are some who don't believe in this wisdom or in the better angels of our shared American history as they tear down the statues of people like Ulysses S. Grant, Frederick Douglass, and even Mr. Lincoln himself. Lincoln said, "Any nation that does not honor its heroes will not long endure." And for Republicans, our heroes are those who propelled an imperfect nation ever forward, always striving to make life better for everyone. Even as anarchists mindlessly tear up American cities while attacking police and innocent bystanders, we Republicans do recognize those who work in good faith towards peace, justice, and equality. In fact, it was General Dwight Eisenhower, a future Republican president, who said, "Democracy is a system that recognizes the equality of humans before the law." Whether you are the family of Breonna Taylor or David Dorn, these are the ideals that will heal our nation's wounds. Republicans will never turn a blind eye to unjust acts, but neither will we accept an all-out assault on Western civilization. My value.
That's what this is in America. That's what's going on right now. This is an all-out assault on the United States of America, on security, on freedom, on the Constitution, on the Bill of Rights. You as Americans, me, you, everyone listening now, live, later, in podcast, in your truck as you're driving down a major freeway, Jack Alexander in Australia. You come here and you have freedoms that are inherent within you. You have a right to not be fucked with. You have a right to be able to sit at the end of the day on your porch and enjoy a sunset. You have the right to be left alone. Leftists don't get that. This is one of the reasons I say I believe leftists and the Democrats have a very big surprise coming on November 3rd.
Were shaped by my faith and by my parents. I worked at their small coffee shop, meeting people from all walks of life. And I realized something. No matter who we are, everyone needs a cup of coffee. That lesson stuck with me because despite our differences, we all want the same things. For our children to have more opportunities than we did, to feel the dignity of work, and to believe that if you play by the rules, you can make a good life for yourself and your family. So the question is, will we choose the path that gives us the best chance to meet those universal desires? Or will we go backward to a time when people were treated like political commodities who can't be trusted to think for themselves? I think often about my ancestors who struggled for freedom. And as I think of those giants and their broad shoulders, I also think about Joe Biden, who says, "If you aren't voting for me, you ain't black," who argued that Republicans would put us back in chains, who says there is no diversity of thought in the black community. Mr. Vice President, look at me. I am black. We are not all the same, sir. I am not in chains. My mind is my own, and you can't tell me how to vote because of the color of my skin. Joe Biden is a backwards thinker in a world that is craving
He missed the prime opportunity to remind people there.
Okay, what's that, Jack?
He missed the prime opportunity to remind everyone that it was the Democrats who voted to keep all black people in chains.
That's an excellent idea. That's an excellent observation. But you see, this all works together. Everything dovetails in what we're seeing right now in 2020. Everything dovetails. And it's right out of Engels and Marx. Taking down history, taking down statues, removing history. You know now that Snopes is telling everybody that Joe Biden didn't say or didn't support, I'll defund the police. I'm God, if I ever have the opportunity to do this on the air, if I have the technological ability, because I just did this the other day. I set up on a screen, and I'd love to be able to show you people on video. I had Google on one side, and I had either DuckDuckGo or Bing or some other search engine on the other, and I searched for the same thing. Google gave me nothing but leftist crap on the left, and DuckDuckGo or Mozilla or Bing, whatever the hell it was, gave me what I was actually looking for on the right. And if you don't think that's happening with every search you make today, folks, it's happening. Google and lots of other leftist sites won't let you see the truth anymore. And that's the nature of 2020 right now in America.
Leadership. There's no wisdom in his record or plan, just a trail of discredited ideas and offensive statements. Joe Biden would destroy jobs, raise our taxes, and throw away the lives of countless unborn children. And he is captive to the radical left, a movement committed to cancel culture and the destruction of public discourse. They believe your skin color must dictate your politics. And if you fail to conform while exercising your God-given right to speak and think freely, they will cut you down. The politics of identity, cancellation, and mob rule are not acceptable to me. Republicans trust you to think for yourself and to pursue your American dream however you see fit. Mr. Lincoln said the dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise to the occasion. I believe Donald Trump can meet Lincoln's mandate, even as Joe Biden remains trapped by his own failed record and by the radicals who dominate his party. Let's be honest. No one is excited about Joe Biden. And so I ask you to judge the record. On criminal justice reform, Joe Biden couldn't do it, but President Trump did. On the economy, Joe Biden couldn't do it, but President Trump did build an economy that worked for everyone, especially minorities, and he will do it again. And on immigration, Joe Biden promises more to illegal immigrants than he does to you. But President Trump believes his highest duty is to the American worker. The choice is clear. Let me close with something my mom told me. This country's many faces comprise a family, not separate parts to be divided against each other. And like any family, we care for one another. We grieve together. We share our burdens and our struggles, and we celebrate our successes. And though we fuss and fight, we are not enemies. We are Americans, united by a collective faith in our Constitution and laws and the fundamental fairness they represent. We are defenders of life and of individual liberty. And we carry the mantle of Eisenhower and of Reagan to be a force for good in this world, and one that must always be reckoned with. That's my Republican Party, the party of Lincoln, that believes America is an indispensable nation, an evergreen tree, standing tall in a turbulent world. And that's why I am voting for Donald Trump for president. Thank you, and God bless.
That was perfect. Great insight. And I submit that there's an issue. There's a problem. I'm going to go into this. I may end up going a couple of minutes into overtime because there's one 5-minute video that I definitely want to end on this. And Leslie Holker, bravo to this guy. Yeah, the Kentucky AG, you're going to see this dude again. Guaranteed you are going to see this dude again. Whiskey Dale in chat said 47 years and couldn't do it. And I pointed this out in social media some time ago. You want to see the tax records of a multimillionaire. I don't know if he's a billionaire. He may be. You want to see the tax records of a guy that just got into politics. He's a millionaire, multimillionaire, or a billionaire, and you want to see his tax records. Why don't you want to see the tax records of all the political assholes in D.C. who weren't millionaires, came to D.C. and became millionaires? You don't want to see those. What the hell? And there is a big consideration coming up. This is from National Review. Don Lemon let out just a bit of truth the other day. It's showing up in the polls. CNN hosts worry Dems will face electoral consequences if they don't address the issue of rioting. Well, here's Don Lemon with his really good friend Cuomo, and they're having just a bit of a tete-a-tete here.
I think that what you said was happening in Kenosha is a Rorschach test for the entire country. And I think this is a blind spot for Democrats. I think Democrats are ignoring this problem or hoping that it will go away. And it's not going to go away. And so, unless someone comes up with a solution over the next 73 days, or 70 so, however many days.
68 days?
68 days. So it's not going to, the problem is not going to be fixed by then. But what they can do, and I think maybe Joe Biden may be afraid to do it. I'm not sure. Maybe he won't. Maybe he is. He's got to address it. He's got to come out and talk about it. He's got to do a speech like Barack Obama did about race. He's got to come out and tell people that he is going to deal with the issue of police reform in this country, and that what's happening now is happening under Donald Trump's watch, and on Donald Trump's watch. And when he is the president, Kamala Harris is the vice president, then they will take care of this problem. But guess what? The rioting has to stop. Chris, as you know and I know, it's showing up in the polling. Mm-hmm. It's showing up in focus groups. It is the only...
Now, that's not what they were saying 1 week ago. That's not what they were saying 2 weeks ago. It's an expression to riot. That's not what Nancy Pelosi was saying recently.
It is the only thing right now that is sticking. And the Democrats tonight stuck with that, right? And they also stuck with the theme that you said. The coronavirus. You got coronavirus and you have Kenosha.
But here's the deal. Meanwhile, as Cuomo and Don Lemon are panicking over that disastrous kind of impact that the leftist riots, they're not protests, they're riots. Let me hold up my hand and inform all of you, as I have done before. I speak leftist. I'll translate this for you. Democrats and leftists don't give a fuck about the violence or the deaths from rioters until it began to negatively affect their polling numbers And that's the only time that they actually began themselves to pay a little bit of attention. I have 3 articles very briefly I'd like to cover about that. You know who I think is going to make a rather concerted dent positively in President Trump's second term? Let me spell it out for you. American black males. It ain't going to be females. They're all emo. We got some really great conservative females. You know who they are. One of them here broadcasts on SHR. Teresa Collette, great conservative. By and large, though, I believe that if anyone turns this from Democrat to Republican voting for Trump, it'll be black males, young black males. From Gateway Pundit, Trump holds a 36% approval rating with black voters in the latest Rasmussen monthly poll. Here's another one. Gallup, more than 80% of black Americans want the same or more police presence in their neighborhoods. Here's another one. This is from the Political Heat. Democrats' worst nightmare. Black Trump supporters march in Los Angeles and champion hashtag Black Lives MAGA. Jack Alexander, any thoughts?
Oh, that's brilliant. Black Lives MAGA. I love that.
You bet.
Yeah. Don Lemon, I think, is right to be worried in all of this, because I think after the election, and I'm convinced the Democrats have completely lost this election by the constant, well, not just their public support, they're actually using their officers to give material aid and support to the rioters. Like the mayor of Seattle sent the city council barricades to help them barricade the Chazza, and so on. The public is now seeing that and they're really now beginning to wake up and smell the coffee. That these liberal mayors, they're not about protecting the communities. They don't care about their oaths of office. It's about personal glory and enrichment.
Exactly.
We don't care. We don't care if the community around us burns to the ground, as long as at the end of the day, and when they eventually get taken out of office, that they are wealthy, that they can buy all the privilege in the world, and race has nothing to do with it. I mean, we see this from all of these politicians, black, white, and indifferent. Nancy Pelosi is far more wealthy than she is now, and her district is a disaster. Dianne Feinstein's the same. We see this with so many others. We look at the black politicians as well. We look at the mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot. Chicago's an absolute disaster zone, and it's still, they just don't care. They don't care about them rioting in Chicago. Lori Lightfoot's all about defunding the police, but wants to make sure that the police protect her nice gated community so the protesters don't turn up there. You've got the mayor of D.C., again, another black mayor, black Democrat who wants to defund police, telling restaurateurs that, well, if a protest turns up in their restaurant, just call the police. But if they defund the police, who's going to turn up? I can really see in what some of these restaurant altercations, they're going to get into the face of someone who is carrying a firearm, threaten them. That person is going to get up, draw their weapon, and be put into a position where they feel the need to pull the trigger at point-blank range. And you know it won't be the protesters that get the wrath of God brought down on. It'll be the person carrying the firearm who defended themselves.
Well, all it takes is one person having a bad day and the wrong person confronts them, let's say, on that bad day. That's all it takes. And we have been very lucky so far. We've been incredibly lucky so far. 2 minutes to 10 o'clock on the left coast, 12:58 on the right coast, 1749 and 223.7 subcluster 3, paragraph 4 in Bolivian time, and I never could quite understand Bolivian time. I believe I have 2 more videos that I want to play. This is from a gentleman that was on my show. This is from Andrew Pollock, who was speaking to the RNC. He lost his daughter Meadow in the Parkland shooting. Wrote a book. I had him on the show for a full hour. It was one of the most powerful hours you could have heard on my show. And then I will end on the affective. One more time, one more video after this one. This is Andrew Pollock, who lost his daughter Meadow in the Parkland shooting.
In 2018, a gunman walked into Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, and changed my life forever. My name is Andrew Pollock. His name isn't worth saying. One of the seniors walking in the hallways that day was my beautiful daughter, Meadow. She was just months away from graduating and beginning a new life. We were so proud of the woman she had become. But in the hallway on that 3rd floor, the gunman saw Meadow and shot her down the hallway, hitting her 4 times. After she was shot and on the floor, she crawled over to another student, a freshman girl, to protect her. She draped her body over her, and then the scumbag gunman shot my daughter at point-blank range 5 more times, killing Meadow and the girl she was shielding. She had a whole life ahead of her, and in that life, she could have done anything and been anything. So many moments that I waited so long for were taken from me. I didn't get to drop her off at college. I didn't get to walk her down the aisle. But every moment was taken from her, and for what? I never wanted this to become a political spectacle, but it did. I never wanted to meet the president like this, but I did. I was invited to the White House. The truth is, I had just buried my daughter that week. I really wasn't interested in public events like a tour or a photo op. I was interested in answers and solutions. So if the president wanted to meet me personally, I said I'd go. They said, of course, that was his plan. At the White House, my family and I sat with the president in the Oval Office and told him about Meadow. I told him what we knew. I told him that his administration needed to take a closer look at what went wrong and why. And I got to see who President Trump really is. He's a good man and a great listener, and he cuts through the BS. Then the president did what he said he would do. He took action. He formed a school safety commission that issued dozens of recommendations to make schools safer. But I'll bet you never heard about that.
No.
Instead, the media turned my daughter's murder into a coordinated attack on President Trump, Republicans, and our Second Amendment. In fact, when President Trump asked me and other parents of children that were murdered in school shootings to join him as he announced the commission's findings, the media's first question wasn't about protecting kids. Shockingly, they asked about the government shutdown. President Trump turned to me appalled and said, "Andy, can you believe these people? We're trying to talk about school safety, and this is what they do." But I could believe it. After my daughter's murder, the media didn't seem interested in the facts, so I found them myself. I learned that gun control laws didn't fail my daughter. People did. The gunman had threatened to kill his classmates before. He had threatened to rape them. He had threatened to shoot up the school. Every red flag you could imagine. But the school didn't just miss these red flags. They knowingly ignored them. Far-left Democrats in our school district made this shooting possible because they implemented something they called restorative justice.
Listen to this.
This policy, which really just blames teachers for students' failures, puts kids and teachers at risk and makes shootings more likely. But it was billed as a pioneering approach to discipline and safety. I was just fine with the old approach to discipline and safety. It was called discipline and safety. But the Obama-Biden administration took Parkland's bad policies and forced them into schools across America. When President Trump rescinded Obama's guidance on restorative justice policies, he put an end to that. And that meant the world to me. It's hard to tell how much Mr. Biden understands about what happened at Parkland. Mr. Biden has campaigned on bringing back restorative justice as part of his unity platform with Bernie Sanders and has pledged to implement it in school districts across America. But he doesn't even seem to know when the shooting happened. He said that he was vice president when it happened, but he wasn't. Mr. Biden may not know when my daughter was murdered, but I do. February 14, 2018.
Valentine's Day.
Mr. Biden may not know that these policies make shootings more likely, but I do. Mr. Biden may not know who was vice president that day, but I do. It wasn't Joe Biden. It was Mike Pence. Thank God. And I know who the president was, too. It wasn't Barack Obama. It was President Donald J. Trump, and he took action. I truly believe the safety of our kids depends on whether this man is reelected. I hope you'll join me in helping to make that happen. Mr. President, myself and millions of Americans appreciate you and love you. God bless America, and God bless our president, Donald J. Trump.
This is a man who lost his daughter. He lost his daughter because there were no consequences for actions. Democrats and leftists do not want consequences for actions. That is how you create murdering assholes like the one who shot Meadow Pollock, his daughter. Go ahead, Jack.
And here's the thing with all of this. I think it was you posted a meme out on Facebook saying, Joe Biden's been in politics for like 48 years. What is he, can you name anything that he has done? And I think it's tagged on the end of it, I'll wait. The one victory I think that Joe Biden has to show for his 48 years in public office is the law that he co-authored that made schools gun-free zones. So Joe Biden is his one real victory in his 48 years in office led to the situation that created, the Parkland shooting and all of these others by disarming teachers and schools. That's his one victory. And, I think Mr. Pollock should have maybe mentioned that it was Joe Biden who authored the law that set up the situation that allowed for his daughter to be murdered.
Let's also, I want to end that video because I have one more video that you have to hear, folks.
Let's go all night.
Oh, yeah, right. This occurred in Broward County. Do you folks remember the Broward County sheriff was Scott Israel? He was a massive Democrat. He loved to be seen with photographs taken with Hillary Clinton, etc. It was his department's responsibility to protect citizens in that school. His deputies, plural, abjectly failed at that. They failed to though they had clear and obvious signs that this guy was, and people would tell them, he's a mass shooter in the making. You can have no consequences under any kind of a Democrat or a leftist establishment. I just want to point that out as well. Here's my final video for tonight. It's about 5.5 minutes. This is the one that I said, if your eyes don't mist up a bit at this, I wonder about you. I make fun at the beginning of my show now for Lori Lightfoot and the Chicago murders. Maybe I should have said this earlier. I'm not poking fun at the victims. I'm not poking fun at the dead. I'm bringing this to everyone's attention in terms of another leftist who wants no consequences for anything in her city. I'm making fun at how ridiculously stupid and murderous she is. She doesn't get it. And what I mean by that is Black lives don't matter. And all this Black Lives Matter bullshit from communists, Marxists, racists, and terrorists. Black lives don't matter. This is a power grab. Black lives don't matter in Chicago. They don't matter in major leftist urban rat cages. And one black life didn't matter to this person.
Hello, my name is Ann Dorn. I'd like to introduce you to my husband, David. Father of 5, brother of 12, grandfather of 10, friend to thousands. He was the most kind, dedicated, loving life partner I could have hoped for. He had a big smile and a heart to match. He was blessed with the gift of gab, and that gift enabled him to touch souls and inspire people, especially young people. Oh, how kids loved him, and they really loved him back. Dave was all about service. He served 38 years in the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department and 6 years as chief of police as the Moline Acres Police Department. After 44 years, he retired from law enforcement, but he never retired from helping a friend in need.
That's more than me.
Since he befriended every person he met, he was a very busy man. One example of that was his friendship with a young man named Lee. David met him when Lee was just a kid, after members of his family were attacked and murdered. Dave took a special interest in the boy. They bonded, and their friendship grew and remained strong throughout the years. Lee eventually opened a pawn shop. He trusted Dave implicitly and asked Dave to help with security. David readily agreed. Whenever the shop's alarm would go off, the alarm company called Dave. He would investigate. If he got a call after I went to bed, he would wake me up and tell me he was going to Lee's, just to make sure everything was all right. Most of the time they were false alarms, triggered by a storm or animals. But I never rested easily until I heard Dave's key turn in the door, knowing he was home safe. The alarm that went off the morning of June 2nd was for real. It was a violent night in St. Louis. 4 officers were shot. Others were hit with rocks and fireworks. At least 5 businesses were damaged, looted, or set on fire. As the Officer Wellness Coordinator and CIT Coordinator with the police department, I was keenly aware of the rioting and spent the evening getting ready to mobilize support for officers who were impacted. After I'd gone to bed, David received a call from Lee's alarm company. The front door of the pawn shop had been breached. This time he didn't wake me up to tell me. He probably knew I would have tried to stop it or insist on going with him. As I slept, looters were ransacking the shop. They shot and killed David in cold blood, and then live streamed his execution and his last moments on earth. David's grandson was watching the video on Facebook in real time, not realizing he was watching his own grandfather dying on the sidewalk. I learned of all this around 4 a.m. when our doorbell rang. The chief of police was standing outside. I wondered why Dave had not answered the door. It wasn't uncommon for him to be up watching TV at this time. I called out to him several times. There was no reply. He just wasn't there. I let in the chief, and fighting back tears, he uttered the words every officer's spouse dreads. I relive that horror in my mind every single day. My hope is that having you relive it with me now will help shake this country from this nightmare we are witnessing in our cities and bring about positive, peaceful change. How do we get to this point where so many young people are callous and indifferent towards human life? This isn't a video game where you can commit mayhem and then just hit reset and bring all the characters back to life. David is never coming back to me. He was murdered by people who didn't know and just didn't care. He would have done anything to help them. Violence and destruction are not legitimate forms of protest. They do not safeguard Black lives. They only destroy them. President Trump understands this, has offered federal help to restore order in our communities. In a time when police departments are short on resources and manpower, we need that help. We should accept that help. We must heal before we can affect change, but we cannot heal amid devastation and chaos. President Trump knows we need more Davids in our communities, not fewer. We need to come together in peace and remember that every life is precious.
Jack Alexander, thank you for being here tonight.
You're welcome, man.
Monsieur has unlocked!
We'll meet again. Don't know when, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Smiling through, just like you always do, till the blue skies drive the dark clouds far away. So will you please say hello to the folks that I know? Tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you saw me go, I was singing this song. We'll meet again. Don't know when, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben. Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.